Some people can sit through a boring meeting, a long commute, or a slow afternoon, and never once drift off into a fantasy. No imaginary conversations, no daydreaming about a different life, no mental movie playing in the background. Most people assume that's either impossible or a little sad, like something's missing. But psychologists who study this have found something surprising. People who rarely daydream often have stronger attention control, higher emotional stability, and a fundamentally different relationship with the present moment than the rest of us. So today, we're breaking down the real psychology of people who never daydream. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why some minds are built to stay anchored in reality, while everyone else's brain keeps wandering off without asking permission. Stick around till number 4. It's the one that flips everything you probably assumed about imagination. And stay till the end, because the final section explains something most people never realize about their own mind. Let's start with the science. Most people's brains, left unsupervised, default to what psychologists call the default mode network, a set of brain regions that activate during rest and produce spontaneous thoughts, memories, and fantasies. It's the reason your mind wanders during a boring task. But research on attention has found that people who rarely daydream tend to have significantly higher executive attention control, the cognitive ability to keep the mind locked onto a single task without it slipping into unrelated thoughts. This isn't about being boring or unimaginative, it's a measurable cognitive skill. Studies using working memory tasks have shown that people with higher attentional control report far less involuntary mind wandering, even during repetitive or tedious activities. In simple terms, while most brains treat focus like a leaky faucet, constantly dripping into fantasy, these people's brains treat it like a sealed pipe. The attention goes in, and it stays in, right where they pointed it. It's not that their mind is empty, it's that their mind is disciplined. Here's where it gets interesting. Psychologists actually measure something called fantasy-proneness, a personality trait describing how much someone engages in vivid imaginative activity, from daydreaming to deep immersive imagination. People high in fantasy-proneness often report rich inner worlds, vivid childhood make-believe, and strong absorption in movies, books, or stories. People low in fantasy-proneness, the group we're focused on today, tend to process information more literally and stay closely tethered to observable reality. This isn't a deficiency. Low fantasy-proneness is linked to something researchers call concrete cognitive processing, a thinking style focused on facts, direct experience, and immediate reality, rather than hypothetical possibilities. This is actually why people with this trait often excel in fields that demand precision under pressure: surgery, emergency response, air traffic control, engineering. When the cost of a wandering mind is genuinely dangerous, a brain that doesn't drift isn't just useful, it's essential. Now let's talk about something most people get backwards. They assume daydreaming is purely positive, creative, relaxing, harmless escapism. But psychological research paints a more complicated picture. A well-known 2010 Harvard study titled "A Wandering Mind is an Unhappy Mind" found that people's minds wander roughly 47% of their waking hours, and that mind wandering, regardless of what it's about, was consistently associated with lower momentary happiness than staying focused on the current task. Here's why that matters for people who rarely daydream. Many of them aren't suppressing fantasy out of some rigid discipline. Their emotional baseline is already regulated enough that they don't need an escape hatch. Daydreaming often functions as a coping mechanism, a way to mentally exit an uncomfortable present moment. People who are already emotionally settled in the present simply have less pull toward leaving it. This reframes the whole trait entirely. It's not that they can't imagine other realities. It's that their current reality doesn't generate the itch that daydreaming is usually scratching. If you've ever noticed you daydream more during stressful periods of life and barely at all when things are going well, comment "same" below. That pattern is more telling than most people realize. Here's the one I promised you. the psychological twist most people don't expect. We tend to glorify imagination and treat living in your head as a sign of depth or creativity. But there's a well-documented psychological state that non-daydreamers often experience by default, one that most people have to work hard to access: present moment awareness. This is essentially the core mechanism behind mindfulness meditation, the practice of anchoring attention fully in the current moment instead of the past or an imagined future. Millions of people spend years training themselves to achieve what non-daydreamers often do automatically, without ever sitting on a meditation cushion. Research on mindfulness consistently links present moment focus with lower anxiety, reduced rumination, and greater life satisfaction. So the twist is this: what looks like a lack of imagination from the outside might actually be an unconscious, built-in version of a skill that other people pay for retreats and apps to develop. They're not missing a mental movie. They've simply never needed one because the current scene has always felt like enough. That one probably reframed something for you. Drop in the comments if you know someone like this, someone who always seems here in a way most people aren't. To be fair, this trait isn't purely upside. Psychologists studying creativity have consistently found a link between mind wandering and divergent thinking, the ability to generate multiple novel solutions to an open-ended problem. Some of history's most famous scientific and artistic breakthroughs were reported to arise during unfocused, wandering mental states. Einstein's thought experiments, for example, were essentially structured daydreams. So people who rarely daydream may trade away a certain kind of loose, associative creativity in exchange for consistency, reliability, and sustained focus. It's less about one style being better and more about a genuine cognitive trade-off: depth of focus versus breadth of imaginative wandering. Interestingly, some of the most effective thinkers learn to toggle between both states deliberately. Intense focus when execution matters, permitted wandering when ideation matters, but for people who rarely daydream naturally, that toggle often has to be built consciously, since it doesn't happen on its own. Last psychological insight, and honestly, I think it's the most overlooked one. There's a subtle but important distinction between avoiding daydreaming and not needing it. Some people suppress imagination because they were taught it was frivolous or unproductive. But the people we're really talking about today aren't suppressing anything. They simply experience a kind of baseline contentment with reality as it is. Psychologists sometimes describe this as low discrepancy between desired and actual experience, meaning the gap between where I wish I were and where I actually am is small. Daydreaming often fills that gap. When the gap barely exists, there's simply less pulling the mind elsewhere. That's a quiet, almost invisible kind of psychological security. Not flashy, not dramatic, just a mind that isn't constantly reaching for somewhere else to be because where it already is feels sufficient. So if you're someone who rarely daydreams, you're not unimaginative or missing something. You likely have strong attentional control, a grounded and literal way of processing the world, an emotional baseline steady enough that you don't need mental escape, an unconscious version of present moment mindfulness most people spend years trying to learn, and a quiet contentment with reality that's honestly rarer than people realize. And if you made it this far in the video, sitting through 9 full minutes without your own mind wandering away, that tells me something about you too. You're someone who actually wants to understand things, not just consume content passively. That's exactly the kind of mind this channel is built for. Every week I break down the hidden psychology behind everyday things, habits, traits, relationships, the way people think without even realizing it. If that's your kind of content, hit subscribe now, because next week's video digs into something even more surprising. And honestly, I think it might explain you even better than this one did. See you in the next one.